Okay,
Ready, Jerry?
headphones on, boss.
Yes,
Here we
sir.
go. It's real.
Real.
And we just found an hour.
All right, check, check. Mic check. Check. Can you hear me, Jerry? Okay.
Check, check,
Josh.
check. Check, check, check.
3 would be Elena.
Check. Check. Oh, closer. Better. Hello?
She said hello. She's trying.
I'm on 4. I know that's loud enough. I've never had anybody say I wasn't loud enough in my life.
Okay. Fine.
Now, Barry, is there anything you'd rather not talk about?
What's now? I'm ready to roll.
Okay.
I'm particularly fired up
Good.
these days. So
Good.
Yeah.
We're on Facebook. We're on live.
Oh.
So yesterday, CMTA had their 100th anniversary opening because they had their new space. They had the whole 7th floor of the Center Hotel, 15,000 square feet. So they've got some good dues paid members there. But there were a lot of state legislators there and assembly people. So. But there was a guy from GoBiz there talking about governor's office for business, and talking about what they've done with a place, a CPA is a place where you can find about credits. So talking about state people looking for the silver lining in things. I mean, I think that's great that they have that, and that's helpful to us. But I think there's probably more they could do for business in California. So I hope they do that. So, Elena, how long have you been with GSAC?
About a year and a half.
What'd you do before that?
My background's primarily in political fundraising, campaigns, and messaging.
Oh, okay.
But then decided to come over here and kind of dig into a community instead of moving around working on different issues.
Gotcha. So, what's your role?
I do our engagement and our strategic initiatives.
Okay.
So all of our stakeholder management, councils, fundraising events, and then strategy stuff. Yeah.
Gotcha.
yeah, so she's an apprentice CEO.
Oh, good. Should we take a new job down the line?
She will take it from
All
me.
goes according to plan.
I don't let her come to board meetings, I gotta get my 401k up a little bit higher, and then she'll show up and then, God, who's this? And then they'll be like, and why isn't she the E CEO?
You always gotta have your training your replacement, right? And
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can help the
that's a big
organization.
part of what I do.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of this organization is to train future leaders for the region. So I have probably 6 women that all want to be in leadership working in the organization that are 29 to 31 years of age.
Excellent. Excellent.
They'll be the people you'll be hearing about in the next 5 to 10 years that'll be taking the community forward in other roles.
Got a smart monitor.
Barry's Training Academy.
You want to talk about LLS?
What's that?
You want to talk about LLS?
We can do it briefly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I talked with Janae and Kathy, and they'd love to come on once the campaign kicks off.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
they were excited about that.
All right. Have you been on Mark Haney's show?
Mm-hmm.
Someday I'd like to get to be like Mark, because he's got lots of people that help him out. I got to do
Mark's
all
a good
my
guy.
own recording. I got to download it myself, put it on YouTube, figure out how to make a podcast out. I mean, he's got the support staff. But
Yeah.
he's a great guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
That shows.
Yeah, it's a small circus going
Yeah.
on at the same time.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Numbers on Money 105.5 FM, part of the Wall Street Business Network. This is Mark Bellows. I am a tax principal with Clifton Larson Allen in our Roseville office. I work with manufacturers, distributors, real estate developers and investors, and contractors primarily. Tax planning, tax strategy, tax compliance, and with the new tax bill, there's a lot going on. In fact, CLA is having a webinar this Friday, and if anyone wants information, you can always get a hold of me, mark.bellows@claconnect.com. Working with a lot of my clients on what tax reform means and what it means to them, and if they should change from an S corp to a C corp, and how much of that 20% deduction are you going to get? All these types of things. What's happening to entertainment expenses, which are basically gone. So your golf club dues, your King's tickets, all that type of stuff is non-deductible. So anyway, that's what's going on in my world. Today, joining me again, thank you, Josh. Is Josh
Morning.
Morrell with Tri-Counties Bank.
Good morning.
My guest co-host this week and next.
Yep.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Doing well. So
Good.
we're off to a great start to the new year, and
Right.
looking forward to good things to come.
Oh yeah, I think the economy's humming and really cranking along, and things are going good. So it's a good time in business right now.
There's a
Seems
lot
to be.
of positive talk out there,
Absolutely.
which is, propping everybody up and getting everybody motivated to do some things.
Yes.
So some of that cash is starting to come back out again, and I think we're starting to see some people reinvested into their business and starting to keep the momentum going upwards.
Absolutely. And I my hair's getting long. I haven't had it cut since November because I'm doing the St. Baldrick's fundraiser. March 3rd is my shave date. 5 weeks away. I'm really looking forward to it because my hair's really feels to me really long.
It is touching the ears now.
It's a problem with touching the collar. So it's stbaldricks.org is the organization. If you can go there and search under Mark Bellows, you'll see my page if anyone's interested in contributing. What St. Baldrick's does is they fund research into childhood cancer causes and cures, and a portion of the money raised here locally goes to a couple researchers at UC Davis to fund some of the research they're doing. And so there are numerous shape events that St. Baldrick's does in the springtime. So we've got De Beers,
Mm-hmm.
the bar has them at the Kings game. The River Cats will have one. That's one I'm doing in Roseville. So
Is that at the Galleria
yep,
again?
Galleria. So it's close to my house, so that's the one I get to. But there are all kinds. There's going to be one in Oakland this year because we've been working with local. KCC has been working with Oakland Children's Hospital, so there'll be a shave event there. So lots of opportunities for people to shave their head and raise funds while they're doing it. So, and you're involved in the fundraiser as well.
Correct. I'm running for Man of the Year for Sacramento's Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
Excellent. We've had Rick Ferguson on, my old co-host. He did that one year. Mike Miller from Plastic Packaging
Correct.
did that one year. Roland Gillen
Yep.
has been on. He did that as well. So we've had a lot of, and we've had the LLS people on the show. So
Yep, and that kicks
Great
off,
organization.
runs March 1st from May 12th. We've got 10 weeks to raise as much money as possible.
and you're trying to raise a couple $100 million.
A couple $100 million.
All right, good.
My team has a goal of $100,000.
Excellent. Nice.
So, and as you know, every dollar equals one vote, and the man, woman, and student teams,
Right.
whoever gets the most votes wins. So
Yeah,
we're off to the races March 1st at midnight.
that's exciting.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Excellent. So we have guests today. Our guest Barry Broome from Greater Sacramento.
Good morning.
Good morning, Barry. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for
And,
having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show. And Elena Ruiz, also with Greater Sacramento.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My successor.
Yeah, good. we were talking about earlier. Any good successful business person as developing their successor. I mean, you have to do it for
Mhm.
for the organization's health and for growth and mentoring. And you mentioned you like doing growth and mentoring. So let's talk about real quick. What is Greater Sac? And
Yeah.
what's your role?
Yeah, so our job is to build an economic model for the region, and that includes everything from understanding what our brand is, how to communicate that to the marketplace, to being able to directly present transactional rationales to companies that are evaluating the market, but also help the community understand how they have to design their own community and how they have to work together to be more efficient and productive. So you see these economies that people really envy. They're really efficient, productive communities. Great at transit, great at transportation, great at infrastructure, outstanding at training people. So it's really about an evolution of our region from going from, a government town that has been sort of happy to be a little bit sleepy to evolving into something more dynamic.
And you have been in this role for how long now?
3 years next month, so I'm a veteran now.
Yeah. And before this, you were in Phoenix.
Yeah, I was president of the Greater Phoenix Economic Council for 10 years. And, when I came to Phoenix in 2005, we didn't have a state economic development organization in Arizona. It's a libertarian state, so there wasn't a lot of leverage to change behaviors. Phoenix was 28th in the U.S. in competitiveness. When I left in 2015, Phoenix was ranked about 11th in competitiveness. So as the community got more competitive, the job outcomes changed.
So I think you're touching on an interesting point, because I think sometimes I've heard people say that well, Barry's role is to bring companies to the region, but it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Because if you bring companies to the region and the region hasn't changed before the company got there, what's the impetus for keeping the company there, for bringing, like you said,
Right.
a more holistic approach?
Right. I mean, some of the companies that we've been working with and developing and bringing here, after policies by the state get put under tremendous pressure to move out.
Right.
So it's really a combination of factors. I mean, there really is no such thing as a business recruitment organization. I think one of the challenges in California, I think, is California has been so successful economically on its own because of its amazing amenities that the practice of building an economy doesn't really exist in California. I look at it like if you were in Texas and you brought up climate change, they don't even believe it exists.
Yeah.
So where's the policy infrastructure for
Right.
what? We don't even let it on our website, right? The governor of Florida that got in trouble because he took climate change off all the state websites. And I don't know what he tells people during the hurricanes. But,
Yeah.
So everybody's got their own expertise.
Right.
And when you've led the U.S. Economic performance for 40, 50 years, how to do that is not something in the expertise. So building and teaching and creating community capabilities is a big part of this job.
Barry, I know a lot of your job is recruiting companies.
Mhm.
Are you looking globally, nationally? Where's a lot of your focus?
Yeah, so the first rule of thumb is, defend your own backyard. So the Bay Area, which has been outbounding technology jobs and companies at a rapid rate for quite a while, connecting the Bay Area and Sacramento region into a single economic model is probably our biggest objective. Second from that's the LA market. And then of course, we focus on sectors like life science and food and ag. And then we do have about 12 national markets that we work, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, fill in the blanks, you can probably guess them.
Yeah.
And then, in the next 6 months to 12 months, we'll roll out a more defined international plan, with an emphasis on, China, possibly Japan, but also Western Europe.
All right, we are going to go to commercial break. When we get back, we'll continue the conversation with Barry Broome of Greater Sacramento. Listen to Beyond the Numbers. I got to tell you, when I give fingers, that's how many minutes are left. So
What's that?
the producer tells me how many minutes are left we do it by fingers.
Okay.
So when I'm holding up fingers, that's it.
Okay.
So I was thinking we could go into the state of the city,
Yeah.
the breakfast, what message you got from that, just kind of the conversation we were having before the show about what you've seen Daryl do, and
Yeah.
et cetera. So, you next?
Yeah, the state of the city was last week,
Mm-hmm.
and the state of downtown yesterday. I assume similar messages from Daryl?
Yeah. I think Daryl's doing a good job. I think, and you have a business crowd, and I think that's and this gets into, there's a cynicism about things in the community too, in the undertow, because people have been told something's going to happen 5,000 times and it never happens. MLS will add to that list, right? I want people to realize, that things can happen, and they happen when leaders connect and make change, and I think the mayor's given the community a chance to really do that. He's not running a social left agenda. He's being a mayor.
And we're back. You're listening to Beyond the Numbers on 105.5 FM, a part of the Wall Street Business Network. Mark here with my co-host today, Josh Carell, and we are discussing Sacramento and what Greater Sacramento is doing in the community. We've got Barry Broome on, this President and CEO, and Elena Ruiz, one of his right-hand people, helping out. So we talked a little bit about, earlier off-air, the state of the city and the state of the downtown, both of those messages. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you heard and what you've seen Daryl Steinberg and his team doing?
Yeah, I think, one of the things, and I know we have a business audience here, it's time for a lot of business leaders to kind of reopen their eyes and revisit, Daryl as a leader, Mayor Steinberg, because I think he's doing a great job as mayor, and he's really moving the city forward. And one of the things that really excites me is, the intense commitment he's making on learning how to be a good mayor. What's great about Daryl is he doesn't have a huge ego. So if you were president of a Senate in California, as they say on Anchorman, you're kind of a big deal. And he's not like mayor of Sacramento because he's looking for something else to do. He's really committed to the community. So I think the mayor is learning and refining his economic platform, but he's making it a high priority. And I know in the past the business community always hasn't had a tremendous amount of confidence in him, but it's time to shake that and turn that around, because this is a mayor that the business community should have a lot of confidence in, and we should be thinking critically about how we marry our relationships together and get things done for our community.
Well, and I know a lot of what Mayor Steinberg has talked about is reactivating the River District, connecting downtown and Old Town back to West Sacramento, and really bringing a lot of more of a community feel back to downtown. How does that affect what you're doing out there as far as the recruiting process goes? Yeah,
I think, Golden One has been as good an asset to present a case as possible, because, a lot of people, they have a preconceived notion about our region. And, if you want to go somewhere nice, you go to Placer County. If you want to go somewhere that's got hipness to it, you go to Davis. And then there was this big hole in the region that people just considered not a great place to be. That was their presumption. Now when they come into the community, well, Davis is still a hip, cool place, and I think Roseville has the best Thai food in town. And there's a lot of great amenities in Folsom, but now the urban core is contributing to the overall success of the region. And I think getting the rail yards moving, getting that river cleaned up.
Yep.
I mean, think about if you were selling your house. If you were selling your house, would you want Matsui Park to look like that? And would you want the rail yards to look like that? 12.5 million cars drive by the rail yards every year. Mm-hmm. And so, we're giving people, this is who we are.
Yeah.
When I look at the rail yards, I want people to think of that as a statement about who we are. Very complicated project, very difficult. But, we have to be very determined as a community to move these things forward and to really clean things up like our riverfront. And, it's a statement about us as a community, what our riverfront looks like.
Now, interesting you bring up the rail yards. There's kind of been a start-stop aspect to it. And I know there's a lot of talk of Kaiser going in there and what they're going to do. What do you see for the rest of the rail yards?
I think that's one of the things we need to do is really build a vision on that. And, we're lucky that, the Kellys have stepped in, mm-hmm. and, you got a local investment group that you can trust that cares about the future of our community.
Right.
But this isn't something they're going to be able to do on their own. And that's why when the mayor talks about, possibly public investment into an economic model, I mean, if you look at the rail yards, everybody in the United States had rail yards, but they were in states that had appetites to make public investment in the economy. So when you've got 100, 200, 300 million from your state pouring into the rail yards, well now you can move that project forward much more quickly. And I'm not suggesting that that's the number we should be doing locally, but we really need to be thinking about what will make the rail yards reach its potential. Obviously, it's got to be an urban live, work, and play model. So I think there's going to be tech there, a lot of great restaurants, entertainment, and I think you'll see a lot of housing there. You could put 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 housing units there. Hopefully, we'll have a Major League Sports franchise there too someday. That would be exciting as well.
So you talked a little bit earlier about the impression outside of the region of Sacramento. So tell us a little bit about what that may be. A couple things I have in mind I'm thinking of. One is when you were looking at taking this job, what was your impression of Sacramento? And then what's been the other people's impression of Sacramento as you talk to people outside the region when you first started, and today has it changed?
Yeah. Well, actually, I get in trouble for being too candid, but my wife loved this place. So, I was friends with Kevin Johnson. I was the head of economic development in Phoenix, and so the Mayor Johnson and a dozen CEOs were trying to figure out how to help this community. So I flew in a couple of times, just did workshops. Was actually helping them in their search. And I kept bringing my wife with me, and I found out if you don't want to move to Sacramento, don't bring your wife. Yeah, so my wife was like, hey, I think you should take this job. And then she actually got a job offer in Sacramento and was moving here without me, so I decided that this was a good idea.
Join her,
yeah, so I think, it's an unknown asset in the world, and, it hasn't been a community that's been marketed or sold or presented in an intense way. And so coming in, you had the government and the state of California, which made you concerned. But now that I've been here 3 years, I think it's a really dynamic and exciting place, and I think it's on the rise. And I think our story is changing a lot, and we've put tremendous energy into that as an organization. So, when a reporter writes something negative about Sacramento, they get called by us now. If it's in the New York Times, if it's in the LA Times, we call them and we, put a little bruise on that reporter, and we send them information on our community. And so things like the Amazon bid, even though we weren't successful, getting Vivek Ranadive on CNBC, for 12 minutes to talk about our community and the economy.
That's great.
I mean, that's a $10, $15 million ad that you couldn't get paying for it because it wouldn't be as credible. So I think, we've chipped away at this in a partnership with our communities on really understanding how earned and social media and communication platforms shape us. And I think, when I now go into the Bay Area, that's going to be the hardest place to change our reputation. I didn't realize the Bay Area thought they were better than everybody in the world. I took it really hard at first. I now realize, like in San Francisco, they say bad things about Paris and Tokyo, so I don't feel as bad about that. But I think we're well received in Los Angeles, well received in Seattle, and I think nationally we have this campaign called the California Option. If you're going to California, this is the place for you, and I think that's true. I think it's starting to resonate. These things take, if you look at Austin or Seattle, I mean, these communities spent 10, 20, 30 years building their brand and reputation. So for being in 2 or 3 years, I think we're getting a lot of traction.
Now, even though Sacramento wasn't successful in acquiring the second Amazon location, how did that propel us in the eyes of national investors or people looking to move here?
Yeah, well, I think, one of the things that I think we've done a good job at, I'm a pretty good guerrilla marketer, so, I knew going after Amazon was probably a long shot, but once you get into the competition, you think you're going to win because you can't help it. It's just your personality.
Right,
So I was like floored when we didn't make the short list. I know other people didn't think we would, but honestly, I'm still getting over not making the short list. I mean, it'll be about another week, but for a couple days there, I felt really sorry for myself, So, so to me, I think what people don't realize is, all the top people at Amazon analyze that asset. So you've got, the C-suite executives reading our proposal. There's the name Sacramento region is coming up internally in Amazon for weeks. And then nationally, Seattle Times did a piece on us being the dark horse. So there was a lot of press involved in this, and there was a lot of opportunities between Forbes and in some of these online digital sites like Mashable, which has 19.4 million viewers, did really deep dives on our offering and what we have to offer. And I think our region could become a cause celeb nationally. I really do. And I think things like Lady Bird, will really help us on that. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to see that movie and say, hey, what is this quaint town called Sacramento that, moved this, young artist to present such a great case for us.
Now, 5-10 years ago, did you think that Sacramento would have come together like they did to create a bid for Amazon?
No, not at all. And I think, one of the things I think is, well, that's why this organization is set up like this is, right? So really what happens is investors analyze your MSA, your Metropolitan Statistical Area. So no one at KPMG. So what happens is people think companies choose communities like you buy a house. And in some ways they do. That they predetermine how many bedrooms they need and things like that. But they don't shop housing like we do for communities, right? So they're sitting around with KPMG and EY and Deloitte, and these are the shoppers. And they're looking at analytics platforms. And so I think the ability to compete can only be regionally, because otherwise you can't bring UC Davis and Sacramento State and University Pacific and the community college system broadly into a model. I can sell Davis's amenities and Placer County's lifestyle, and you want to snowboard in El Dorado County, they're on our board. So I can create this majestic picture about our community and then bundle that data. So when we present our case, we're a 2.4 million population market, and it puts us in the top 23 in the U.S. in capabilities.
And that, I think, is a really good way you present the message, is that it's all the communities surrounding us. It's not just Sacramento.
Right. So, if there's a lot of people that work in downtown Sacramento that live in El Dorado Hills. Actually, I want to bring up a point. No single community produces more than 32% of their jobs from their residents. So if you live in Roseville, Roseville's producing jobs for the whole region.
Right.
If you live in Folsom, if you work at Intel, how many people working at Intel live in Folsom? Probably 20%, 25, maybe 30 tops, right?
Yep.
So all these communities are basically delivering each other's capabilities.
Yep.
So if you're in Roseville, you've created a lot of jobs for this region. And so it's really important for people to understand we really are one unit. We are one set of offerings to the world. We are one broad community. And all these things are just how we deliver Roseville and Folsom, that's how you deliver your police department. It's not how you deliver your economy.
Well, I would think that message is draws a lot of interest from the potential suitors, the ones you're looking to bring in, I should say, because to them that's a lot more attractive versus just a disjointed community. But we got this big region that's all working together.
Right, and when people talk about where do my millennials live, you can show them Davis, West Sac, which is becoming very attractive. Midtown. Where do my executives live? Let me show you Roseville. Folsom. Let me show you, El Dorado Hills. Where does my middle management guys live? Well, let me show you housing affordability in Elk Grove. Elk Grove's a community that's really on the rise, in my opinion. So it's really, it's this complementary set of menus that meet business and investment needs that can only be presented in a regional case.
Yeah, I know one of the things, Barry, since you've come on board, is marketing it as a region. And we're no longer, Folsom isn't competing with Rancho. Rancho isn't competing with Roseville. We're all coming together as one region to, go against Texas or Seattle or anything to bring everybody in.
Yeah, and that's the key. We're all in this together.
Good. We're going to take a break here for commercial. When we come back, we'll talk with Barry about some of the successes they've had and what led to those. You're listening to Beyond the Numbers.
You got to chime in a little.
I was going to say, you're going to carry the last 15 minutes.
Perfect. On a roll.
Now, did you do that in Phoenix area?
What's that?
In Phoenix, did you do the same thing in terms of getting the outlet? Or
Yeah,
surrounding
23 communities.
Okay.
They were very polarized.
Well, I think Sacramento was too.
Yeah, but we're polite about our polarization. They weren't polite in Phoenix.
Is that right?
Yeah. I would like 4 mayors want to go to breakfast with you. I'm like, not without a witness. I know what that's about. It's a shakedown, arm-breaking breakfast.
Yeah,
I'll be the only one not finishing my eggs.
just have a cup of coffee and watch the magic happen.
Yeah. So I used to always say that's one of the reasons why I have CEOs, you know, because they'll behave in front of a CEO. So if you go sit down with 4 mayors and you got Rob Lynch and Vivek with you, oh, we love working together. You know, if they're not there, it's like, how come I'm not getting more out of you? You know, Phoenix, I mean, it would be like, I would be like, what? I get a breakfast with 4 mayors? Well, where's the owner of the Cardinals and the Diamondback? Where's the defense? Where's the front line, man? You know, I'm going to go on that meeting by myself and, you know, they're going to pull my arms off. And some places can't do it at all. Chicago can't do it at all. You know, the daily machine of muscling everybody in Illinois for 50 years, you couldn't get a multi-community partnership around Chicago under any circumstances. Seattle's having a hard time with that too.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's really important is, you know, we've been able to break that code.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Yeah. What part of town do you guys live in?
What's that?
What part of town do you guys live in?
Midtown.
Midtown?
Yeah, I'm a hipster, man. Super hip, dude.
Elaine, how about you? Where you
Oak
at?
Park. Oak Park.
Oak Park. Okay.
Mhm.
Nice.
She's a real hipster.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm a hipster wannabe.
Yeah.
I'm a middle-aged hipster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We got a minute. Got all kinds of time. So we got what's on tap the rest of the day?
Oh, I got about a 12-hour grind.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's the other thing people don't realize. I mean, we work like 12 hours, 14 hours a day in this job. I mean, it's a heavy lift
Oh, yeah.
to do it right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, so I've got, you know, a couple presentations with companies. I want to talk a little bit about the small tech play I've got going with the Bay Area.
Mhm.
I got some really cool stuff going there, and I think people underestimate how impactful that's going to be to the community long term. But
And we're back. We're listening to Beyond the Numbers. Jerry, what was that? Okay.
it's a great song.
You know it.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
sure.
yeah. Good.
I play 60s on my XM.
Nice. Well, we're listening to the music, but we're talking with Barry Broome, President CEO of Greater Sacramento. Josh Carell, myself, my co-host today. So tell us about some of the successes you've had.
Yeah.
Or the Greater Sac has had.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, a lot of people have underestimated, you know, the potential impact that these small tech companies were bringing up.
Right.
You know, we have a company out of Munich that's going to be announced in the next week or two. You know, that'll bring their automotive R&D to Sacramento.
Excellent.
You know, and their emphasis is things like autonomous vehicles and, of course, electric cars. So bringing a company like that increases capabilities in the region. So it's not just the company itself, but that company can be a solutions provider in this market. So if we have a conversation with Tesla, you know, that's a company that could possibly provide, you know, battery solutions to a company like Tesla. So
Oh, sure.
so the autonomous vehicle, next-gen automotive piece is really important to us. I'm under a non-disclosure agreement, so I got to be a little bit careful. But you know, there is an unnamed company looking at 5,000 jobs in Sacramento,
Excellent.
and I think we'll know more about that in the next 30 days, and hopefully that concludes. But that's a great example of the city of Sacramento stepping up and doing the right things. McKesson, chose Roseville over Reno, which was really important because there's a cost differential there.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And it really speaks to the kind of value that I think Roseville brings companies with a complete package of infrastructure and turnkey experiences at the city. And Chris Robles, the economic development leader there, stepping down and retiring. He's done a great job for Roseville, so shout out to him. And then I think a lot of the up and coming tech companies like Rhombus Systems, which is some SAC kids that went down to Silicon Valley, had some success stories, built a company backed by Sequoia. They're back home now building a company that I think can be very exciting. So, we've been able to land a Chinese solar firm out at McClellan. Hopefully this major investment will come through. It'll be the largest investment in the last 35 years in our community. And it'll be the biggest single investment in the history of Sacramento if it pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
So a lot of, I think, we're kind of building the airplane while we're flying it. So 3 years ago, February, I was given a file and had a dozen CEOs. Today, there's 40 CEOs on the board.
40, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big.
Yeah.
That's a big board meeting.
Yeah. Well, and that's why the be brief, be brilliant, be gone model
Yeah.
I had perfected.
I like it.
Yeah. As soon as the meeting starts, I try to end it. my board chair, it's like, hey, you only got 2 hours. I said, let's see if we can do this in 90 minutes.
Yeah,
We don't want to have a fight break out.
But that's
here.
the point is that that's great participation.
Yeah, that's great participation.
40 CEOs. That's phenomenal. That shows you what the growth you guys have had and the momentum.
Yeah. Well, it also shows you that what's happened in California is the state government has to wear the jacket for being anti-business, and we have to put that jacket on them and make that jacket uncomfortable.
Yes.
The idea of whistling by the graveyard. I always say to every business leader, if you're going to let 40 elected officials take your state from you, shame on you. They don't do that. They don't allow that in Texas. They don't allow that in Arizona. They don't allow it in Colorado.
Right.
We shouldn't allow it here. And the opposite of that isn't necessarily being anti-state, right? So I always say, there's a pushing and being somewhat disobedient to your government, is an American responsibility. And we want the state to succeed, but we don't want the politics of the state of California to rise above the interests of the people of Sacramento. So I think, my style is, go after it hard. So I think some of the CEOs felt like, well, here's a guy willing to take risks. And of course, starting with a dozen CEOs helped because, the people that really stepped up, like Dave Lichetti and Kyriakos Sakopoulos and Mike Teal and Mark Friedman and Larry Kelly and the Kings, that sort of gets you started, that there's some credibility there, and we built on that. And, we take about 8 hours a year of their time. These are busy people.
Right.
We do a one-day retreat with them. We build business plans, business models, and we execute and report back on the plans. So it's very much like a tech startup, working towards an IPO. And, the goal is to change the future of our community, put our best foot forward, challenge the assumptions that aren't fair about us, that we're not a dynamic place, that you can't attract talent here. That is completely nonsense. And we can prove that to any business in the country. And then, get out of the business. And I think one of the comments that the mayor made at his State of the City that I like the best, let's get out of the hope and pray model. He used that in his speech.
Right.
And, this town can do anything it wants to do, but this is a gritty, grinding, hard-nosed exercise we're entering into. And it's not a soft skills exercise. It's not about, our amenities. It's about our ability to compete with Texas for an economy. 10 communities in the United States right now have 60% of all tech jobs. So, the important thing for us to remember as Sacramentans is, there's no more okay. So the idea of sitting back and being a government town and being okay, things are pretty good. We're not booming, but we're okay. I don't have everything Seattle and San Francisco has, but I'm happy with my hometown. And there's a great affection, by people in Sacramento for our community. And if you love your community, and I know we do, then don't bet on okay. I'm from Ohio. So just so you know, you'll never tell a guy who spent most of his life in Cleveland that okay happens. I've seen a complete collapse of a community. I was head of economic development in Toledo, Ohio, and for 6 years I was the CEO in Michigan. So I know what Detroit's not a story to me. You know, I know Detroit. Toledo and Detroit are about 45 minutes apart. And, you know, what people don't realize, you know, Toledo, Ohio had 7 Fortune 500 companies headquartered in it. And it was, you know, it's the size of Sacramento.
Right.
And, you know, the mighty can fall, you know, if you don't do the right things.
Yep.
And we shouldn't let California, Rome's burning, right? You know, we shouldn't let California operate they are without a challenge from every one of us to do better for our kids, our families, our communities, and our future. So I'm excited about what we're doing and where we're at. And, you know, I'm going to dig in and get really hard-nosed in the next 2 years. And, you know, we're going to find out what everybody's made of.
Good. Now, Barry, I know you talked a lot about tech companies coming over. What's a lot of the major attraction that's bringing them our way? I know we have a very educated workforce with the university systems here in Sacramento. What else is bringing them this direction?
Well, one of the things, you know, Kevin Nagel, who I want to, you know, thank on air today, who put, you know, $100 million of his own money on the table to help us bid for MLS. You know, Kevin's been a big impact player in taking Minetta Ventures to scale.
Right.
So Minetta Ventures, which is in Folsom, Lukesh runs that. You know, having a $50 million fund run by pros sort of changes the appearance of Sacramento, right? So they come up, they see UC Davis, you know, the Venture Catalyst program headed up by Deshaun is very active with us. So they get services out of UC Davis. There's a very exciting student entrepreneurship program that was backed by Dale Carlson that's being launched at Sac State by Robert Nelson. So when they come up and see Sac State with a up-and-coming student entrepreneurship program and they see UC Davis reaching out, you know, they go into Folsom, they see a source of capital, you know, they go into the urban core and they see a city on a rise. You know, when they see cooperation in the community, they're like, hey, I never thought this place was this cool. And they're getting services and benefits for being here. So everything from being able to capitalize them, to connect them to the universities, and of course, you know, all the different spaces in town now, like the Urban Hive IO that Brandon Weber's developed with Mark Friedman. You know, this looks like a tech town now to them. It acts and looks like a tech town, and it's becoming a tech town. And I don't think you can continue to do it in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley. And a lot of those folks don't want to leave California, and we're an important alternative. Not because we're affordable, you know, right? I mean, of course we're more affordable than the Bay Area, but who isn't? But because we can actually present solutions to them as a company and take them to scale. And then SkySlope and some of our other local companies that we didn't have a lot to do with, there's some really cool companies in Folsom and Auburn. You know, SkySlope's a big success story. You know, we weren't responsible for that, but you know, there's a lot of really cool things going on here that you can't deny. Trifecta, one of the companies we've worked on that came up from LA, Chico State guy running his 5th company here. A lot of up and coming, sharp, young, talented people here that can do big things.
Yeah, I've had Art Levy on the show, you know, Laundry Locker and Luxor One. He moved here from San Francisco, and we've had some other people on the show that have had made the moves here, and it's been, you know, I always ask them why, you know, what is it that brought you, and it's all the stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's what brings them to this city, to this general area.
Yeah, and we've got probably 5 more companies that we're going to announce like that, you know, and that's really important for people. I mean, you know, Uber was in 500 square feet of incubation space in 2011, and so you know, don't underestimate.
Absolutely.
You know, bringing a couple dozen of these 5-8 person tech shops up from the Bay Area. If we do that every year, in 2-3 years, somebody's going to explode. Once we get an IPO, once we kind of reach that level of where, you know, we have a unicorn, you know, now all of a sudden we're going to be on the map. Instagram put LA on the map, you know, and you know, we can have a similar experience here.
So you think there's a time where we'll attract enough, we're no longer just a government town?
Yeah, I do. I really do. And but you know, this isn't a 2-year proposition.
Right. It's a multi-year.
Yeah, it's a multi-year proposition.
All right, we've got to take a break. When we get back, we'll continue the conversation with Barry and Elena. And you're listening to Beyond the Numbers. I'm on 105.5.
So you talked a little bit about the Chinese company coming in, the solar, how's that
Mhm.
new tariff that they talked about putting on?
Yeah, what's that gonna do?
Yep.
Trump's new tariff for
Yeah.
imported. I mean, I know you talked about we got the Chinese solar manufacturer.
Yeah, I'm
and
not a
all
fan of
stuff.
that. And it
Well, I don't
might-
think anybody is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so far, like, it's like everything in the world, like, you know, the most known worst economic policy in the world is a tariff. I mean, like, it's got 150 years of total fit. The French, you know, quit doing them in like mid-1700s, you know. So tariffs have been around forever. All they do is contract industries.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, one of the reasons that, you know, the tariff under President Obama was one of the reasons that stalled the solar industry. And now you have Trump doing the same thing, and silly.
And we're back. You're listening to Beyond the Numbers on 91.55 FM, part of the Wall Street Business Network. A little Paul Simon to bring us in there. So, Barry, what was your first success when you came to Sacramento? Or Greater Sacramento's first success?
I'm trying to think of what it was. Well, I mean, other than getting the organization off the ground.
Well, I was going to say, the success can be to find a lot of ways. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a success right there.
I think,
Especially given there's a predecessor organization that's doing what you're doing
yeah,
in a different way.
yeah. I think probably, I would say probably getting 15 communities to sign on within my first 6 months. But they didn't just sign on; they entered into contracts with the organization. So this is
Literally
have a
Which is
contractual
you're getting buy-in, you're
relationship.
getting accountability.
Yeah, there's accountability to us and accountability to do. And one of them is they're accountable to a regional model. So they can be removed for saying something negative about another community here. So there's a protocol agreement between the communities. And one of the things that really hurt this community, and you know, Sacto did a lot of good things for the community. You know, it was around 40 years, so refreshes happen. But you know, all the people that worked at Sacto and invested in Sacto should still get gratitude from us, you know, because they were loyal soldiers for the community. But you know, when you put the municipalities and governments on this board, and then they get services back guaranteed contractually, you know, they can see a clear value proposition, and we're building strategic plans, their communications platforms, we're coaching them on their employment centers, but they also entered an agreement where they can't say negative things about each other. And I will tell you, a consultant for a major publicly traded company, we took them to the NCAA game, right? We looked for all the heavy hitters that went to UCLA
Right.
and drug them up for the NCAA game. And, you know, we have a shot at, you know, probably next 3 to 5 years, a major investment from this company. But they came up in 2013 and 2014 and looked at Sacramento, and they met with 3 communities, and each community badmouthed the other 2 communities. And so the company left going, wow, I went to XYZ community and thought it was pretty cool, and then they told us these other 2 communities we were looking at were really bad. Then each community told them what was wrong with the other 2 communities. And so the company came up here and got a negative pitch, and of course took a pass on us.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that we ended pretty quickly here. And you know, it's cultures die hard, but you know, like the Amazon application, you know, Kurt Haven and Rancho, and you know, the economic development communities policed that application. So we built the model, but it was the, you know, 15, 16 economic development directors in the region said this is who should be first, this is who should be second. There's even some talk among them just putting our 2 best proposals in. So there's been a real growth and sophistication and on how my colleagues work together in the region. And I think that was probably a big success for us.
I think so.
You know, versus, you know, an announcement. And then of course, you know, I think one of our early announcements was 2,000 jobs from in Elk Grove with Apple. You know, that was kind of, you know, a lot of that has to do with Elk Grove's history with Apple, but you know, Apple came up and challenged us on whether or not we could deliver the engineers, and UC Davis and Sac State delivered the engineering profiles they needed. So even though something like that is simple, there was some complexity involved in it.
So that, yeah, that's that's great. There's been lots of good successes. What about some? I know I don't like the word failure, but maybe some losses or where we didn't prevail, and what did we learn from that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because you know, markets have reputations. You know, so if you go out shopping, or if you're going to go out and buy a car, You know, if you've drove a certain brand of car all your life and it's always come through for you, you go back out and look at
Sure.
that same
Yeah,
dealer
yeah.
again, right? You know, when communities give employers a bad experience, I liken it to food poisoning. Okay, so if you went to a restaurant
You're
and
not
you got
gonna go
food
back.
poisoning, you
Yeah.
never go back.
No.
And not only that, but you tell everybody about your food poisoning, right? So, you know, everybody has a friend that's had food poisoning. They'll tell you what they ate, where they ate it. They'll never go back again. Usually the food they eat, sometimes they never eat again, right?
Right.
I had a bad sushi experience once. You know, I went off sushi for 5 years. It's really good here in Sacramento, though. So thank you, Makuni.
Yeah.
But you know, so to me, you know, we had a couple major investments and that had very bad experiences here, and some of them, and they were tied to some national investment advisors. So a lot of what has happened here is we have a lot of bureaucracy, we have a lot of layers of government, and we have to get rid of those things. You know, we're not able to emulate a San Francisco bureaucracy. I mean, we're really Indianapolis. So if you want to look at a community that we're a lot like Columbus, we're a lot like Indianapolis, we're a lot like Louisville. You know, I think we're a lot like Nashville in many ways. And those communities are mid-tiered markets. So you don't have to be in Columbus, you don't have to be in Indianapolis. No matter what Fortune 500 company you are, you don't have to be in Louisville. Why do you have to be in Louisville? So those communities have learned how to create environments where companies want to be there.
Right.
And that's the step we have to take as a community. You don't have to be in Sacramento. Why do you have to be in Sacramento? Unless you're a government entity, you don't have to be here. So we have to build an environment where people want to be here. We have to build credibility and consistency around that environment. And that's what we're doing on these small tech companies, building credibility and
Right.
consistency. And on the major investments, we have to do the same thing. So we had a couple, multi-thousand job investments that I thought really wanted to be here, but we couldn't deliver the mechanics. You know, we couldn't deliver water and sewer. We couldn't get them through development cycles quick enough. And they were companies that took passes on us that were very committed to us. And it was thousands of jobs. And so to me, you know, those are the kind of things we need to self-correct.
And have we made some steps in that direction in some of those cases?
You know, I'm not sure that we've made it at the rate that we should be.
Yeah.
But, you know, and a lot of that has to do with some of those things that are interfering with those investments. There's a lot of complexity between the state's overhang on our community. So when you're asking a community to get rid of an impact fee or to move a development cycle more quickly, their question is the state making me do this? You know, so sometimes the state's making the county do that or making the city do that. And, you know, one of the things that I've learned in Sacramento is to fear two things. Anything that starts with AB and some acronym that starts with CA. So as soon as I hear an acronym or a bill number, you know, I immediately start to sweat under my collar because I know what's next isn't good for what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
Now, is there a way to change that and get out from underneath that?
Yeah, and I think that's the real change we have to make. And a lot of that's information and education, and I have to go through a learning curve, right? So I would be less than dishonest if I didn't tell you I probably have gone through the biggest learning curve of my life in the last 3 years. So, you know, it isn't, I think a lot of people are saying, hey, tell us what you want us to do. And one of the things that I've learned is, you know, if I tell them to do something and it's a violation of the state law, that's kind of hard on them, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, the encroachment of the state is beyond anything I could have imagined in this job. And so when you see something not happening and it frustrates you with the local leadership may be bearing out the obligation put on them by the state. So going through all those details and pulling all those things apart is a big part of what we're doing with our competitiveness council. John Jackson and Willie Duncan, both leaders from Placer County, both of them higher education leaders, you know, are leading that conversation with our investors.
So part of your mission is working with state legislators and probably local as well, like Mayor Steinberg and his team, to try to address some of these issues.
Yeah, and what I do with our state legislators, I mean, I'm not a lobbyist, and
Right,
I'm not
right.
going to start running bills, but I do spend, you know, when Verizon left Rancho, 1,000 jobs, I got a chance to meet with their
Ken
leader.
Cooley.
Yeah, beg your pardon?
Ken Cooley.
Yeah, Ken Cooley. And all I did, this is what I do to policymakers. I just ran the numbers and said, you should see these numbers. That pulling 1,000 jobs out of Rancho to South Carolina and Texas over 10 years saved that company $40 to $60 million. Like, imagine 1,000 back office jobs paying $65,000.
Yeah.
If you move them out of California, save $4 million a year in operating. And it's the stacking, it's the labor law, it's the workers' comp rate. It's not one thing, and it's not really the effective tax rate. The irony is, I don't think California's taxes are a barrier to our success. It's the workplace rules and the intense regulatory overhang that really keeps people from being certain on what to do here and being certain about in the future they'll be able to operate in a clear and concise way.
And so you hear that,
Hear that
sure,
all
all
the
the time,
Mhm.
as a pushback.
Yeah, and then as someone running the strategy, I mean, what can I guarantee on deliverables, right? So one of the companies we wanted to have that really wanted to be here needed a rail spur. Well, it hadn't gone through CEQA yet. Well, I didn't even know what CEQA was. I was here about 4 months, and people start telling me this thing called CEQA, and I'm like, man, you're making that up. Nobody would do that.
No.
So the county supervisor was like, Barry, we'll put the rail spur in, but these guys want the rail spur in 5 years. Because this hasn't been through CEQA, you can't even guarantee the rail spur in 10 years.
Wow.
Now, in every other market, that rail spur is going to go in,
Right.
and you're going to go through a local permitting process, and the county can approve it, and it can start in 6 months or 12 months. And so the state overhang's got to back off on a community like ours.
Well, we're going to wrap things up now. I appreciate you again being on the show, Barry. And any parting thoughts?
Well, I'll just say this. If we pull together as a community and back each other up,
Right.
so the old model is we're provincial and we're separate from each other. And we actually work against each other in that model.
Yeah.
So the effect is in that provincial model is you're undermining your leadership.
Right.
So the more provincial we are, the more we undermine Chancellor May, the more we undermine Dr. Nelson, the more I'm undermined, the more Darrell Steinberg's undermined. If we're together, we're all empowered. And nobody can beat us when we're together.
Great. Well, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate it. Everyone, welcome or join Josh and I next week. We've got Ethan Conrad on the show talking about the commercial real estate market here in Sacramento. You're listening to Beyond the Numbers. See you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming out.